Alright, long time no see. Um, this doesn't necessarily mean I'm back or anything like that. Kind of took a break from track building, was doing a lot of paid stuff, and decided I wasn't really, wasn't for me. And it kind of ruined the hobby for me, so I kind of stepped away. Um, the downside to that is Palmer took quite a bit longer than it should have. But that's finally done and released and on their Facebook page if anybody's looking for that. But recently there was a comment on episode 7, and I re-watched the episode and I noticed that I mentioned how I would talk about curbs. And so I figured, man, why the hell not? So let's get into some curbage and go over some basics of how you make them and how you graft them into the track, and we'll see how this turns out. Alright, we're going to take a look at the Road America curbs, given that North Wilkesboro doesn't have any. And I wanted to go over the basics. What's a little bit of refresher, a little on arrays and how they're set up, but mainly want to talk about end caps. I don't remember if I talked about end caps in the previous episodes, and I honestly didn't really want to watch them all again. So it really does come in handy with curbs, though. As you can see with Road America, there was quite a bit of different end caps. And these are all the different types of curbs. Like this is the big asphalt kind of runoff, like on turn 1. This is the some of the flat runoffs, but we're gonna stick with the basic ones for now. But you'll see there were 3 different types of end caps for each for this curb. But first, we'll start off without the array on, and you'll see the base object. And it's nothing special. This tail here is what tucks underneath the actual racetrack. So you don't have to really worry about joining or merging the curb with the track itself, which is nice because it allows you to kind of, especially if you're doing a fantasy track, it helps you move it around. You know, if you want to move it around or tinker with it, you don't have to worry about it being welded to the track. You put this tail under here, and then your texture will just have, say, a dark edge right at the very edge, and then it'll blend right in nicely with the track. So that's what I do. I think Kunos did it on like Brands Hatch or something. That's where I got the idea from. And again, as I repeated in other videos, this is how I do things. It's not necessarily the only way to do things, but you'll see how I do it. You may come up with other ways that you may like better. But yeah, this is a basic curb object, nothing special. I did want to mention the difference between the relative offset and constant offset. I'm using constant offset, so when I turn this on, it's because turn it off actually. You can see this, it kind of overhangs. It goes around this radius here. If you do relative offset, generally you get a gap when it overhangs because it goes by the furthest out part of the object. So you'll get a gap. You can do a negative offset and tinker with it, but I find it's easier just to do a constant offset because you have a little more control over it. So you can see that allows also to. Oh, I'll show you. And with relative, you go in here and you move objects around. You can see as I move that out, it makes the gap wider because it's based on the outer edges of it. So if you do constant offset, you can kind of toy with that all you want because it's based on the width and the length of the actual tile. So you can mess around with these all you want without messing with the offset. And you can notice here I also have merge enabled, so that makes it so when it gets to a certain point, they automatically merge into a single piece. Single vertex. So that's the arrays, and then there is the caps. So you can see there's 3 different types of caps here. And And what's nice about it is you can just take your name of your cap if you know you need this longer end cap somewhere. You come in here, we're going to delete this, paste that name in there, and boom, all of a sudden you got the medium end cap. You need a long one. Come back here, go to the modifiers page, get rid of it, put in the long one, boom, get a long end cap. And with the merge, it automatically welds these together. And the key thing to understand, which I never fully understood it, and if you know about it, you're more than welcome to comment about it. So I just kind of like sort of figure it out along the way. But the origin point is what matters the most with the end caps. And it, to me, doesn't seem to make any rhyme or reason where it is. So if I go into edit mode, obviously the origin is going to stay the same, and you'll see that it'll move. Same thing going on x-axis. So like if your object, if you come in and I'm going to reset it to the center of mass, you see it messes up where it is in relation to that. So generally I would just come in here, get it close on the y-axis, then bring it into the x-axis, and then you'll notice it'll snap in when the weld part of the modifier takes place. So as long as it does that, you're fine. And so that's how I kind of figure out where it goes. So just be aware of that. Like if you change the origin to this for whatever reason, you're going to mess up the origin to the end cap. So then you can come in here, change the origin. That'll, yeah, see it. Oh wait, no, I didn't change it yet. To 3D cursor. Yeah, see, that should have aligned it. Yeah, I never could figure it out. I just kind of just get it close, let it snap in, and it's done. So yeah, that's the basics of the end caps. It's a little bit of work ahead of time to get it sorted. Oh yeah, one last thing is when obviously in object mode the origin doesn't change, so you can move that around wherever you need it to be, and it won't change. It's only in edit mode. Sorry, that does anything. As I said, it's a little bit of work ahead of time, but when it comes to actually doing the putting everything in place along the track, and you have different transitions, different end caps, it's nice to be able to just come into the end cap part and change whatever the end cap may be without having to manually model it each time. And one last thing, you'll notice that we have not UV mapped anything yet, and I'll show you that why in a few seconds, a few minutes. All right, so we're going to take a look at the main land here. We're going to actually graft in our new curb here in this area. But for now, I want to take a little overview of what the end result will look like. So you can see here the tail is living underneath the track. The texture, might take a second to load, has a dark edge on it, so it blends into the track nicely. These are all UV mapped, and this is the finished product, obviously. But you'll notice that it is assigned to a curve. So if I were to say we're making this track from the get-go, need to move these around, or if it was a fantasy track and I wanted to move them around to what I see fit, you can come in here and this curve will follow. Don't mind the vertices pulling because it is shrink wrapped, which I'll show you that as well. You'll see it follows everywhere you want it to be. I can bring this sucker all the way around the track wherever I need it to be, and it will follow that left edge of the track all the way. And that is done by curves. And all I did to do that Nope, that's not what I wanted to turn off. Is once you get your track layout made, and you're pretty happy with it. Again, it's not doesn't have to be set in stone, but you're pretty happy with it. You come in here, you make your duplicate. You select your left edge of your track, and then I duplicate it, separate the selection, and then I convert it to a curve. And once it's a curve, then you can assign the curves to it. Curbs. And I'm going to delete that. But so I'm going to show you when I say in earlier videos that I live and die by curves. These are all the curves for Road America. Whether it be walls, track outline, you can see the car track was all done with curves. The distant tree, walls, whatever it may be. So here is the left edge, and obviously the right edge. And this is the curve that all the curbs on this track follow. If I come back to the mainland and I select my object and look at my curve, you can see left edge is selected. So that's the basics of how you tie in to the track itself. It's pretty much all done by curves. And what's nice about that is, let me turn my curves on, is you can tilt your curb as needed very easily. So say you needed to have it different heights or different angles, you come in here, you do Control T, and you can change the curb of your track, the angle of the curbs on the track to whatever it may be. If you want to do a small section, you can do that. If you wanted to do proportional editing, you can change that with your mouse wheel, how much more or little it does. So that's the basics of how you the basic mechanics of tying the curb to the track. Next, we'll take my demo curb, a demo curb, and we'll bring it into this and attach it to the spline or curve, and then I'll show you how to graft it into the land itself. One thing I forgot real quick was shrinking your left and right side curves to your road. That way, if you do make minor layout changes for whatever reason, your left edge curve or right edge curve will follow the road. So you can see here that my left edge is shrink wrapped to the Viz road, which is this here. And the same goes to the right edge. So it's hard to see because these are shrunk to other pieces. But you can see how the curve there followed the road change. And these curves over here, if I go like this, you can see how when I change it, it pulls the curve in with it. So again, not only curves, but shrink wraps, they're a lifesaver. So that's, I forgot to mention that in the previous section, so I wanted to cover that. Okay, so we're back in the host object. This is the one we're going to want to use. You notice I have it named left, because it is the left side curb. There are ways to make this simpler by matching origins, but I usually forget that and get too involved, and so I'll show you the process that I do with if you forget to match origins. Because if you match the object origin with the curve origin, it kind of automatically assigns itself into the correct, not the correct place, but automatically brings it to the curve, and then you can move it around as you need. So we're going to duplicate this, and I'm going to actually move this to my curves collection. I'm going to hide the host objects, bring my curves back, and you'll see this is where my curves are. And I want this assigned I don't know why there's a shrink wrap on here, but I want this assigned to that left edge curve. Find my left edge. You notice that I don't have the origins match up, so the curve is now all the way over here, which we don't want. So the simple way to fix that is select the curb. I'm going to be screwing that up this whole video. So select the curb, and then select the curve. So this is the second thing you select, and then you want to do Control C, copy location. And that'll snap it in here. So this is the origin point of the curve. The curb. You can notice it's perpendicular to the track surface, and we want it to be aligned with it. So we just rotate it on Z by 90. And now it's on there. You'll notice it actually threw me for a loop before while I was doing this, setting it up ahead of time. If I bring it out this way, it just keeps going straight. That's because that's the end of the curve in the track. That's like the origin point, the last piece of the curve. So, but if you go this way, it should follow like every turn. We'll zoom in here. It should follow. See how it follows all the way down. And I can make this as long as I want, and it'll follow. So let's come up to here. We don't need it that long. Where's the original? We turn. Oh, we want. Now that I have it on the curve, I don't really care about the curve so much anymore. I want to move this to mainland, turn curves off, and let me turn mainland back on. Oh yeah, we're getting into the pre-existing curves, which we don't want. Move it down. And you'll also notice it's not quite aligned, which is fine. Just move it. Again, if you get your origins aligned and everything, and your origin was, say, on one of these, it would automatically align. Again, I always forget that, and I end up placing some curves, and then by that time it's too late, and I just have to kind of do it by hand. Forethought helps a lot, but when you kind of get excited about doing a new project, you kind of forget. A lot of that goes out the window sometimes. You might have to adjust the height a little bit. Just you want it to be pretty close to that. You notice the land is already made here, which is common. Even if you're building a track from the beginning, you may throw the land or some basic land in on the edges before you're pretty much before you have any curbs in. And honestly, I think I would do it this way anyway. But the basics is I would delete the area. Oh, I missed this. Do it again. Vertex. And then my old-time favorite thing. Oh, let me make sure this is on. Oh, what we do want to do, if we know where we are, okay, we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but if we know where we are, we want to apply the array. We're not going to apply the curb. We want to apply the array. So now it's a solid object. Let me put this on so I can go to edit mode. It stays here. So now it's a solid object. It's no longer adjustable on length unless you actually like select this, copy it out. But we want to be able to take this edge here. See, we selected the whole outer edge. Want to duplicate that, separate it, and this I don't want to be on a curve anymore because I wanted to join this land. So we're going to apply convert. I usually just do convert to mesh, especially if I have a lot of modifiers on there. But you can just come over here and to apply, and now it's stuck there. It's not assigned to any curve or anything. It's just by itself. What we want to do is we want to join it to this. So now you can delete this guy here. We don't need him. We fill that in. I guess we can fill this in. Boop. Yeah, that'll work. And then we can also delete this guy here. and fill that in, and fill this in. And then all we gotta do after that is a beauty fill. And you can see, and I also don't forget to put shade smooth. Anytime you make faces, they're flat, and you have to make sure you hit shade smooth, otherwise you'll get sharp edges. But you can see now the curb is grafted in. And what also you can do after that is my old-time favorite thing of vertex groups. We'll come in here. I see I already got a bunch already, but so we'll make a new set of vertex groups. 04, we're going to assign this. And then we are going, these vertices that we have selected. So then, I don't know if I need this shrink wrap. It doesn't really matter. This is a demo thing. But I can hide this shrink wrap. I'll add a new one. We are going to shrink it to this curb. And we are only going to do 04. So now, if I come in here, let me turn my curves on. Well, for one thing, let me try move this around. If I go up, it won't do it going. I just realized it won't do it going back and forth. You see, the end ones will do it, but going back and forth because it's not changing any height. But if the curve goes up for whatever reason, or goes down for whatever reason, that part of the land will follow it. Obviously, you'll have to make sure there's no big jumps or anything. But what I wanted to show you, like if you wanted to change your tilt on the fly, get my left edge in here. And we wanted to tilt this, the land will follow it. It's hard to see in shaded mode. And we'll go back, down. So that's the basics of joining it into the land. It's nothing special. It's just a matter of cutting it out. You can see that's exactly how I did all of these over here. It's just I cut them out. I did a beauty fill. I think this is a overrun area. Yeah, this is where the dirt is damaged. So that's what that floating object is there. But that's how some places it'll be more uniform depending on how it's set up. Like here is the forget what this is. I think it's an overrun. Is it just this? Yeah, it's a solid. That's what it is. It's a solid flat overrun. So this has the beauty fill on it. Compared to the this outer track surface. I mean grass surface. But that's the that's the basics of it. You can see I kind of did the same thing here when I built this. When I did this thing here, I would have just deleted this stuff and then beauty filled in there. So that's the basics of getting it grafted into not only the track but also the land itself. So now I want to cover the UV mapping, and I may have covered this already in a previous episode, but this specific, I mean, it's kind of specific to curbs, but kind of not. But the reason we keep the object left on the curb is because it makes UV mapping way easier. The thing to remember is that the host object, such as these guys, are always aligned to the grid. So when you do a project from view, you get a perfectly straight and uniform UV map. The reason we don't do it at this point is because we're still on the array. And if we have an array, all we're going to tile is this one, all we're going to texture is this one little tile. So then the one little texture is going to repeat on every tile, which obviously we don't want, because not only do you not want it to repeat that often, because I'll pick it up every time, but most curves on most tracks have varying colors. Like here is yellow and red. So that's why we do not bother UV mapping at this stage, because it's a waste of time until we apply the array. So, since over here we have applied the array already, it's just attached to the curve. So this is kind of straight here, so it's not the best example. Let me turn off our shrink wrap so our land doesn't get all pissed off. And we're just going to bring this over to this curve, this turn here. So, if we were to, let me save this so I don't screw it up. If we were to, say, apply this curve, and let's go into UV editing mode. And here's this is the alpha channel, it's just easier to see. If I were to say project from view, you get projected from view. You get the curve projected, it's not straight. So to get this to straighten out on a repeating texture, there are tools that you can use to do that, but I've never been happy with them. It's always been a pain. So let me undo everything I just did. Apply modifier. So the left edge curve modifier is still in place. So when we go to edit mode, even though this shows here like this, if I turn off the switch and go to it, you can see it's aligned perfectly to the world, to the X and Y axis of the world. So when I do a project from view, this is what you get. You get a perfect rotate this back 90 degrees. You get a perfect UV map. Start it there, start that there, and you just align to the UV map. We're going to bring this back to where it was. Load up the textures. You can see now it's UV mapped and it's nice and perfect. It's the only way to do it, because if that's why I try to leave everything on the curve for as long as humanly possible. As soon as you apply it, it makes life, unless for somehow your curves are in perfect quads or whatnot, and you can do follow active quads and stuff like that. I didn't quite get this perfect, but it's not the end of the world. It's alright. And then you can turn, if you needed to see the whole length. What the heck is it? Repeat image, yeah. You can go the full length. Sometimes over the course of a long distance, you just gotta fine tune it. And then that should fall into play. Everything should be aligned now. Yeah, everything is nice and aligned over the full distance of the curve. So that's the basics of curbage. As far as UV mapping and or building them, assigning them to the left edge, right edge curve, grafting it into the ground. I could turn this shrink wrap back on, so that's for as these guys will want to follow that. And yeah, and I think these are the physical curves. Yeah, I just used these. The visual in this case is the same as the physical. I don't have a separate one. To a fault sometimes, because it's kind of a pain when you look at my physical layers that the curves are missing. And I think John was unhappy about that last time he messed with Palmer with me. He took them all out of my mainland and put them into the physics where they belong. I just, for whatever reason, tend to just leave these physical and leave them out of the physics layer. If I wanted to have it over there, it's just a matter of obviously duplicating it and moving it into that layer, and it's nothing big deal. But I hope that covers the basics of how to assign curves, how to get them into the model, and hopefully, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna continue doing more of this, but yeah, if things come up, and I think they're pretty easy to make a video of, maybe I'll continue little things here and there. But I can't make any promises at this point. But so hopefully this helps people out a little more, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one if I do one.